Hi there. Today, why gear specs, that is, specifications, can be annoying. And what is puffing? I used to subscribe to Keyboard Magazine back in the 80s, and I believe it was in Keyboard Magazine that I read, "Engineering writes the specs, marketing writes the ad copy." This is so true. This isn't a rant, it's just some things that I believe will help you be more aware and make better decisions when you're shopping for gear. There's an old Latin phrase, caveat emptor, let the buyer beware. We've all made a few purchases that we regret. I have another video episode, a top 11 list of buyer's remorse. You might find it interesting. When it comes to advertising, attorneys talk about a term known as puffing, and manufacturers often stretch puffing to its limits. Puffing allows for some overzealous ad copy. You've probably seen it in TV ads or in magazines. For example, the famous restaurant chain advertising the $9.95 steak dinner. You see the picture of the big juicy steak with the grill lines on it, a huge baked potato oozing with sour cream and butter, and a generous side of vegetables. But wait, you get more. You also get a side salad that is practically overflowing its plate. You head to the steakhouse and order the steak special. You take a seat with bated anticipation. Your server brings you your meal to the table. You heave a sigh as all the joy leaves your being. It looks nothing like the ad copy on or the commercial on TV. The steak is tiny, as is the baked potato, and the side salad is not only small, it's wilted, and there's only one tomato, not 10 like you saw in the commercial. Is it fraud? Nope, it's puffing and it's legal. So what does that have to do with your life as a composer/musician? I'm going to get to that right now. You may have read phrases like, based on our award-winning X. Fill in X with whatever you want. Sound, preamps, you name it. It could be one of their trade-named products. So what does it mean? Unfortunately, it doesn't really mean anything. They want you to assume that the quality and functionality has to be very close to their award-winning X. Let's say that X is preamps and X is a great preamp, but it is no guarantee of quality or functionality for a device that is just based on X. If you want to assume anything, you should assume that it is probably a lower quality, cheaper version of X, which is most likely why you are paying a lot less money than you would pay for X. Here's a disgusting example. You may want to put your fingers in your ears, but I think this drives home my point. I can eat a very high quality steak. My poop is based on what I eat, but you wouldn't want to eat it. You may have heard the highest definition, superior quality, pristine. What do those phrases mean? They don't really mean anything. You should be asking yourself, compared to what? Pristine compared to what? Highest definition compared to what? VHS looked great until DVDs came out. DVDs looked great until Blu-ray, and 4K is even better. High fidelity or hi-fi is an old term circa 1978. But it's a good case study for us. What did it mean? Essentially whatever they could convince you that it meant. The person writing the ad copy is trying to create a mental impression in your mind. They're using words and guiding your interpretation of those words to form an opinion of their product. Here's a good example. When you read a phrase like full MIDI implementation, you form an opinion in your mind of what that means. So I ask you, what does full MIDI implementation mean to you? And I guarantee you that we all have a different interpretation. If you're old school, you may think it's going to have in, out, through jacks on 5-pin DIN connectors. It will respond to velocity, aftertouch, and other controller information. It will have system exclusive dumping and real-time control. But I didn't say any of that. I just said full MIDI implementation and left it up to you to fill in the blanks. When you open up the box and look on the back of the device, you find it only has a single USB port for MIDI. Good luck if you'd hope to connect it directly to a device with only 5-pin DIN MIDI connectors. Manufacturers are not quoting you specifications here. They are quoting you market speak. It's up to you to do adequate research and due diligence before you invest your hard-earned money. Another example, back in the day when you purchased a 24-channel analog mixing console, you knew you would have 24 input channels. Not true with today's devices like audio interfaces. It's possible to purchase a 60-channel audio interface and have half or less than half that number of input channels. There is simply no standard phrase that encapsulates input and output channels for an audio interface. The manufacturer will include input and output channels as a total. Based on that, a 24-channel analog mixing console I owned years ago could have been advertised as having close to 100 channels, when in reality it was a 24 by 8 by 2, which is the standard way of defining the channels on an analog mixing console. On my prior console, if you counted the 24 channels, the sends, and the returns on each of those channels, you already have 72 channels by audio interface standards. Unfortunately, once one manufacturer finds a cute way of puffing their product, other manufacturers have to jump on board or risk their products looking inferior. So what can you do? Learn what specs mean, like bit depth, sampling frequency, the Nyquist theorem, total harmonic distortion, and signal-to-noise ratio. Then read the specs for gear you intend to buy. Look at the pictures, especially the back panels of devices, to ensure the connectors you expect to find are there. You can also download the manuals for gear online, even if you don't own the device yet. Don't assume anything. If the ad copy explaining the device is vague about something and leaves you with questions, it was probably designed that way. Unfortunately, some manuals are also like that. Here's an example that I just made up, but it's typical of what you might encounter. You will find the highest level of custom control on the inputs and outputs of the Jeffie 1000. For example, you will be able to attenuate the input signal to match any source. So now you might be thinking to yourself, okay, I can match any source, but can I attenuate the outputs? Jeffie doesn't say I can. He only gives a single example, and it only relates to inputs. But he does say the highest level of custom control. So it seems logical that a Jeffie 1000 would do that. Don't assume anything. The highest level of custom control is marketing speak. It doesn't mean anything. The bozos in my marketing department are hoping that you will make logic jumps that are simply not supported in any of the Jeffie 1000 documentation or ads. Also, you can be sure that Jeffco lawyers looked everything over to ensure that it was only puffing and not downright fraud. All I had to do was add a couple more words and I could have cleared up all your confusion, but I didn't. I could have said you will be able to attenuate the input and output signals to match any source or any destination. Done. But I didn't say that, so don't assume. Be informed. Be a smarter consumer musician. My intent in this episode is to help you make better decisions and perform adequate due diligence before making your next purchase and spending your hard-earned cash. And remember, this episode doesn't just apply to music gear, it applies to goods and services of all types. We've all made a few bad purchases based on ads. Feel free to share yours in the comments. Hopefully I haven't wasted your time. Take care, and I'll be back in another episode soon.